Why identity collapse is not failure. Hello, my name is Jewel. Few experiences are interpreted more negatively than identity collapse. When familiar roles stop fitting, when motivations change, when old self definitions lose strength, many people immediately assume something is wrong. They assume they are failing. They assume they have lost direction. They assume they should return to who they used to be. This video explores a different possibility. Identity collapse may not be failure. It may be the natural consequence of an identity structure that is not coherent. Many people are taught to strengthen identity, build it, protect it, maintain it, improve it. As a result, identity is often treated as evidence of stability. When identity begins collapsing, the human operating system interprets the change as a threat to continuity. The assumption becomes if identity is collapsing, something must be wrong. But that assumption depends on the belief that identity itself is the source of stability. This series is proposing something different. Identity may provide stability for a period of time, but it is not necessarily the most coherent long-term stabilizer. When identity collapse occurs, the person is not collapsing. Function is not collapsing. Recognition is not collapsing. What is collapsing is the structure that organizes continuity through roles, self-definitions, predictable patterns, consistency pressure, usefulness filters. The operating system experiences this as a significant change because those structures may have been used for years. The collapse of a structure is not the collapse of the person. Identity collapse often feels like failure because the operating system evaluates itself using old identity standards. The system asks, why don't I care about this anymore? Why doesn't this role fit anymore? Why can't I maintain the same motivation? Why am I changing? The operating system compares present function against past identity. The comparison creates the appearance of decline or failure, but what is actually occurring may be a transition between stabilizers. Let's revisit the example of someone who has spent years being the dependable one in the family, the caregiver in the family. They coordinate, they solve problems, they manage logistics, they carry responsibility. Over time, dependability becomes more than a function. It becomes identity. Then recognition changes. The person begins seeing the difference between actual responsibility and role load. The caregiving function remains, the appointments remain, the support remains, but the identity of the one who must carry everything begins collapsing. From the operating system's perspective, this can feel like failure. The person is no longer functioning the way they used to. But structurally, the function remains, only the identity structure is changing. The hidden assumption behind identity collapse is if I stop being who I was, I won't know how to function. But identity and function are not the same thing. A role can collapse while the function remains. A self-definition can collapse while responsibility remains. A familiar pattern can collapse while coherent action emerges. This is one of the most important distinctions in the entire video series. Identity is not required for function. As identity collapses, the operating system initially looks for replacement identities, a new role, a new label, a new self-definition, a new certainty. But the deeper transition is different. Instead of replacing one identity structure with another, the system begins discovering stability through coherence. Recognition becomes more important than self-definition. Function becomes more important than role. Truth becomes more important than familiarity. The source of true stability begins shifting and emerging. Identity collapse becomes progress and growth when it removes structures that no longer fit. The collapse exposes where stability depended on: roles, predictability, external expectations, outdated self-definitions. The operating system gradually learns that continuity can exist without those structures. This is not loss, it is reorganization. To recap, identity collapse is often interpreted as failure because identity has been mistaken for stability. But when an identity structure no longer fits, maintaining it creates increasing contradiction. The collapse is not necessarily evidence of dysfunction or failure. It may indicate that an outdated stabilizer is collapsing. The next video explores the quiet period that often follows identity collapse and why many people misinterpret that state as emptiness rather than transition.